Happy Monday, everybody. At this time, I'll call the Monday, October 2nd, 23 regular meeting of the Harnett County Board of Commissioners to order. And I'll ask Vice Chairman William Morris to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
If you would stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings we received. Give us the strength and the wisdom to govern and do what's best for the people of Harnett County. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. All right, good morning, everybody. This time, I'll consider any additions and deletions to the published agenda.
Move to approve the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the published agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. Do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda carries unanimously as well, Madam Clerk. All right. This time, I'll now open the floor for a public comment period. Public comment period consists of 30 minutes. Each presenter will have 3 minutes in order to speak. We got a healthy list here, so we'll get started. Mr. Jerry Rivas, you're first this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Jerry Rivas, 364 Twin Ponds Road, Sanford. You know, I've been harping on the same thing since 2015. When are law enforcement agencies in Harnett County going to have body cameras and dash cameras? When are we going to see true justice in this county? Why are we stuck in 1923 instead of 2023? What are the powers that be so afraid of? And you know, you 5 commission members, you control the sheriff's department because you have the power of the pen. You control the budget. All you have to do is refuse to approve any budget that doesn't allocate funds for body cameras. It is so simple. It really is. And last Monday, I made a FOIA request. When I was charged with assault, the day after I criticized Wayne Coates in this chamber, I was notified of a hearing to revoke my concealed carry permit. And he did. And then a few months later, he's mouthing off in the paper about Deputy Kevin Letarte. Deserves justice. He has, what's the 14th Amendment say? It eludes me now. I have too many thoughts running through my mind. But I was innocent until proven guilty, but that didn't matter to Wayne Coates. He took my concealed carry permit anyway, and once I was found not guilty, I know it left a bitter taste in his mouth to have to give it back. But what is going on in this county? Why has this county been so corrupt for decade after decade after decade? And it just goes on and on and on, and it never seems to get any better. And you know, Kevin Letarte, I FOIA requested the names of everybody that Wayne Coates has revoked their concealed carry permit when they were accused of a crime. I bet I'm the only one he did it to because I was a political opponent. I also FOIA requested dash cam footage from Kevin Letarte's patrol vehicle. I remember 2 years ago, Wayne Coates touting he was going to put dash cameras in these cars. Well, let's see the footage. They say that he had his sirens on. I talked to 3 eyewitnesses, said he gave a blip of the siren before he hit these people at almost 95 miles an hour. And they got Jimmy White to agree to a plea deal saying he's the probative cause of that accident? No. Where are the policies and procedures for the sheriff's department? What kind of an idiot thinks it's acceptable to do 95 miles an hour in the Old Farm area of Highway 210? Come on. We got to be better than this, people.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Elizabeth Longman.
Elizabeth Longman, 234 Hamilton Road, Band Level. The sheriff has blood on his hands. The sheriff has blood on his hands. The murder of Searles in his jail did not happen in an instant. It took 4 days. 4 days. Inmates called their loved ones because they had tried to call the deputies in there to do something. Mr. Searles had begged not to go back into his cell. They heard him dying. They cleaned up that cell before they let the SPI come in. They made the inmates do it. Wayne Coates has blood on his hands. They are witnesses. One of them passed away, but they are witnesses to what the sheriff's department did not do or was supposed to do. And at some point, this body has to say, we're not going to condone the serial killings of the sheriff's department. So many continue to die because of the inadequacy of that current sheriff. At some point, you have to protect the citizens. I did like a search on how you guys can do it and what the law is. You guys need to sit and talk with your attorney and say, what is the way to get this person investigated and held accountable? If those were children in my home and they kept dying, doesn't matter if they fell off a chair, they rolled over. If they kept dying every time they were in my home, the other children would be removed immediately. Not even children, anyone else that I have to care for. If someone kept getting injured, someone kept dying, they'd be taken away. I would not be allowed to care for those people. But Wayne Coates, the injuries are plethora. Medical situations, plethora. Drugs, he's told you how the drugs gets it. He gave us a tour on TV, how the drugs get in the jail. But we sit here like nothing happens. The other thing is, just to let you know, a woman can no longer give birth in a hospital in this county. We have no public transportation. We have EMS that takes forever to respond. So if you do not have a car, and EMS, you have to wait for EMS to come pick you up and find a hospital for you. If you're a woman, that's it. In this county, you cannot give birth. That's a problem you men will never have, ever. But it's completely unfair, completely inconsiderate. You guys can get your urology cares taken care of in this county, but a woman cannot give birth in this county.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Allen Longman.
My name is Alan Longman, 234 Hamilton Road, Bond Level. The reason I called today, there's so much going wrong. One, you have a representation of one person, you act as a group. You represent wards, you represent different people with different ideas. One person should not dominate the politics of what goes on in the county. You should stand up to any bullying and should allow yourself to use your own mind to make things happen the way you wish your people are representative. You need to represent them as individuals. Otherwise, you just have one person, head of the county, that makes all the decisions themselves. Second, the sheriff has been called that the people in the jail were killed, were homicide. That's his responsibility, as much responsible for the deaths than anybody. When drugs were killing people inside, they found people from the inside were giving them drugs. Why weren't they prosecuted? Why were other law enforcement people who were caught during the time people died there and were known to give drugs and were fired for it were not prosecuted? The other thing,
I like to speak about. There's a mobile drug treatment money available from the state. In other words, it's a portable unit that comes over and helps people in the county. You need to look into that and have that as part of your agenda. Now, other thing I want to say is what Revis was saying. I mean, you don't have cameras that are usable in the jail system. You don't have any accountability whatsoever. You don't have them in the cars. You have the money spent, but you don't have them in the cars. And you don't have body cams. Let's not kid ourselves. He's hiding something. Why would he have all this? Why is he not doing it? The money's available. Why is he not coming up to par with everyone else? He's in charge now. He's going to be in charge of the drug program. I don't like that. I think that's like the fox watching the hen house. He has said he was not able to control his own jail yard. How the heck is he going to protect us in the county? Further, I want to say that I think you guys could do better. I think you need to be looking as individuals and responsible and stand up. Don't get bullied. And stand up for the people of this county. Let's get those cameras in. Let's get them functioning. Let's get some accountability in. I don't see any major prosecutions by Suzanne Matthews. I don't think she's doing her job and has never done her job. I've seen her in court. She's terrible. There are cases she pursued that never should have been brought forward. She needs to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Nancy Jackson.
My name is Nancy Jackson, and I reside at 309 St. Matthew Road in Irwin. Our family is owner and operator of the Indigo Room, along with several other businesses and commercial properties in the town of Irwin. I'm here today to speak about the problems we're having with our water in Irwin. I'm a customer of Harnett County Regional Water System at our home, our commercial properties, and our businesses located in and throughout the county. I wanted to speak specifically about the problem we're having at 121 East H Street in Irwin, where the Indigo Room is located. The Indigo Room is a building that we remodeled, that was built in 1925, and we remodeled it 15 years ago and updated all the plumbing and water lines. Since opening, we have consistently had problems with discolored and cloudy water and water odors coming from our pipes. The Indigo Room is a venue which has various parties, weddings, receptions, repasses, and such. Those types of functions. The discolored water is noticed by our customers. It's complained from our customers. We get complaints almost weekly from these customers about the odor and the color of the water. Due to the nature of our business, the water may not be used for several days. Specifically, we're usually rented on the weekends. We may go 3 to 4 days without anyone in there in our venue using the water. We tried purging the water tanks, but the issue still persisted. To remedy that problem, we removed our hot water tank and replaced it with a tankless hot water heater, which has helped somewhat, but it has not fixed our problem. The problems persisted. We have complained about quality of water. We have complained and got no response from the water department other than to say there's nothing that we can do about it. We flushed our water lines as they suggested. Still, nothing. We still have the same discolored water. We still have the same odor problem. We have some issues at our home and our other properties also from time to time with cloudy water. It's disgusting, to be quite honest. What can we do about getting clean water in Irwin? Otherwise, what can you do to help us get clean water in Irwin? Harnett Regional Water supplies water to other counties. Instead of spending the money to extend water lines to benefit other people that don't pay taxes in the county, why can't Harnett County do something about the water problem in the town of Irwin and the surrounding areas. We are tax-paying citizens. They aren't. I don't think that's fair, just to be honest with you. Again, what are you going to do about our problem? I've done everything that we were told to do. What are you going to do about our problem in Irwin? This is a constant problem. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I cannot read the first name. Last name is Morris.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your service to our county. Two things that are going to be, that I don't want you to tell my colleagues. I'm an attorney by craft. I'm going to say, please fix the water. And I'm going to hope to stay within my 3 minutes. Can I approach and hand these things to you? These are statements from various people in Irwin. Nancy said something that I'm going to steal. There are literally times in my building in Irwin when after we flush the toilet, the water that comes out is dirtier than what we flush. That's the fact. The water smells bad, and this is a problem that is systemic over Irwin. Now, the Harnett Regional Water folks come out, they'll flush the lines out, and it'll clear out for a little while. This is as clean as we have had at our office. We took this out this morning. And it's not something that you would serve at a daycare. It's not something I don't think that I would even offer you folks if you came to my office. We use bottled water and have. And this is a problem that numerous people posted on a Facebook post that I solicited folks that described the water as slimy, brown, discolored. I'm just begging you, get in front of this problem. It's the old saying, pay me now or pay me later. And I believe that the approach thus far has been kind of a Band-Aid approach, where you go out, you flush the line, it eliminates the problem for a little bit. For some, for us, it doesn't. It's eroded our vanities in the office. You can tell it's affected that. And I would say to look at it not maybe as an Irwin problem, commissioners, but to look at it as an economic growth problem. And I looked up some numbers, and I looked up various things, various information about economic growth. 1/3, it was a number that perpetually came back in all of the literature that I read. Clean water is essential to 1/3 the growth of this county. It's exploding in the northern part of the county. It's coming in other areas. And I'm pleading with you. I'm saying, please get in front of this problem. I know it may hurt your feelings financially, but this is a problem that is unsustainable, and it is absolutely unacceptable. You wouldn't have this water in, I don't know that you would drink the water. I wouldn't offer it to you. You're going to hear from a lot of other people, and you're going to hear some repetitive statements. But hear me say one thing, please. And there's proof right there. I got 1 minute. Thank you.
I'd ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Has there been any attempt to fix the water
Not
at any
in,
time? Has it been reported? And has it been any attempt to fix the water over there?
well, first of all, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ms. McCoy. I got to be the world's worst for that. To my knowledge, not in the way that it may need to be, because the folks come out and they will flush the line sometimes, and that will temporarily clear the water up a little bit, but it comes back. If you ran the water in my office, it would literally smell like flatulence. I mean, honest to God, I'm not trying to be graphic, or I'm not sure as heck ain't trying to be funny. It smells that bad. And if you go into our restroom, it looks like the toilets are not clean. And again, going back to my graphic example. So to answer your question, I don't think so, not in a larger way that we feel like it needs to be done. The common thought is that it's old pipes. I think in Irwin, it may even be terracotta pipes. I don't know, but they're old things that I'm not smart enough to answer. But I know that what's going on right now is not fixing it. You have businesses who rely on renters, and who at some point, somewhere along the line, if you resell that building, you buy a house in Irwin, what's going to happen if we don't get in front of the problem is going to be, everyone's got water problems. It's going to affect property values across the line. There are far-reaching effects on this. And then, the things, and I'm hoping there's no headlines, because right now I think it's a problem you can get in front of. I think we're a little bit behind it, frankly. But if not, this will affect economic growth in this county. There's no escaping that. So, again, I want you to hear this, please.
Thank you, sir.
I hear you. The reason I asked the question because that I had that problem in my community at one time, even at my church. But the town of Littleton, they fixed the water. It took some time to get it done, but it was fixed. I know what you're going through, so that's the reason I asked the question.
Well, and if I can add one thing, I do believe everyone that I know has reported it. It's a thing in Irwin. Everyone knows. And it tends to be disproportionately in more socioeconomically lower areas. It tends to be in a lot of your reporting in the old mill houses and stuff. I don't think anyone's at fault for creating the problem, by the way. But did I answer those questions, Ms. McCoy?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, Miss Karen Lamb.
So I'm going to elaborate on everything that they just said about this water in Irwin. I have lived in Irwin my whole life. Work at 102 South 12th Street in Tim's building. I previously lived at 106 East F Street. So I have been dealing with the water issues in Irwin for 30 years now. When I lived at F Street, I would have to call them at least once a month and have them come flush the lines. We even tried putting water filters on the faucet so we could at least drink it. But they would clog up so fast, it was just cheaper to buy the bottled water. And that is what we do in the office. I have to keep blue tablets in the tanks so when clients come in, they don't think that people are not just flushing the toilet. That's how dirty it is. It is constantly brown, and it goes through spells. We can flush it out, and it'll get better for 2 or 3 weeks, and then the brown comes back. And then as we run water, it kind of flushes it again, and then it'll come back. So it's off and on. There's not anything that I have tried that has fixed this problem. I think flushing is just the Band-Aid. And I realize it's going to be a huge financial take that has to be done to come in there and replace those terracotta pipes. But at this point, I mean, our water bills, and I understand that includes sewer too, but, we're paying $80 a month for water we can't even drink. And I don't feel like that's fair. I don't feel like it's fair to us, and a lot of us are longtime residents of Irwin. So we would, as Tim said, please ask that you take this on and fix our water issue so that we will be able to at least drink the water in Irwin. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, last on the list, I have Miss Linda Sutterman. Morning.
Linda Sunderman, 25 Spruce Lane, Lillington. I'll try to be quick. First of all, yesterday was Smoke Detector Awareness Day, and I am living proof that smoke detectors are a necessity in everybody's house. In May, there was 8 people died in house fires and 4 people lived. The 3 in my house were ones that lived. We thank God and the smoke detector saved our lives. Now, also, the news this weekend was with Mr. Searles, the blood on the walls that was cleaned up. And this is all in the medical examiner's, EMT and medical examiner's report. It was all cleaned before SBI got in there. The sheriff's office won't reply to inquiries on what happened. I would like to know, my heart breaks for Mr. Searles' family. That was awful. But when are we going to find out what the results were on the poor man? And I can't think of names right now. My mind's a mess. But the poor man that was shot and killed on Capitol. what was ever found with the investigating on the man on 27 that was shot and killed by John Knight. There was what, like 5 people or 8 people died within so many months in Harnett County due to the sheriff's department. We need information. We want updates on what's happened. We want to know that they really are. And obviously, we don't get the truth if we do get it. October 23rd is Latart's trial. We all need to be there. And if you saw the paper this weekend also, a Johnson County deputy was fired for not following procedures. We have a lot of that. Latart is an example. The sheriff even stated he didn't follow policies, but oh well. No, there's procedures for a reason, and he needed to lose his job immediately, like Johnson County did. We need to follow our neighbors' examples, and we need. But I was glad that they finally maybe got a hold on the drug situation I talked about months ago. Because then they find the employee and the person at the hospital getting the drugs into the jail. So there's still lots to be fixed at that jail. And I would like to see them unblock people on the sheriff's page, or him get a real page, like I complain every time I speak, so that we can find out what's happening, and they need to update investigations on there. And just instead of saying, well, the SBI, it got turned over to them. And we know for a fact the man on Capitol, that scene was cleaned up also before the SBI got there, because the lady that lives and overlooked the yard had pictures of everything. And it was quite disturbing to see those. So I would like to see updates and what's happening with these investigations. We deserve that much. Anyways, I guess I'm done quick. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, ma'am. This time I will now close the floor for public comment and move on to the county manager's report. Mr. Foley Price. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairman. I do not have anything this morning.
Oh, outstanding. I see that we need a motion to approve budget amendments requested by the finance director.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve budget amendments as requested by the finance director. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. Do we hear a motion to approve tax rebates, refunds, and releases as requested by the tax administrator?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve tax rebates, refunds, and releases as requested by the tax administrator. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously as well, Madam Clerk. Okay, new business. I will yield this to Vice Chairman Morris.
Okay. As y'all have heard in the public comment, this has been an ongoing issue with Irwin for years. I worked over there. And first thing I want to say is Mr. McFadden and Mr. Ward inherited this. I remember when Rodney Tartt was the director and they bought that water system over there, and it was failing at that time. So I want to clarify that. First thing, would y'all like to have the floor? Do you have any ideas about how to correct this at this point, or?
Yeah, I've got a presentation I'd like to make.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I want to talk a little bit about planned town of Irwin water improvements and the avenue we're taking to decide what to do about issues in Irwin. As Commissioner Morris alluded to, a lot of this has to do with the age and condition of the system, and there is no easy fix for the town of Irwin. And before I start, I want to say something about water quality. Harnett Regional Water has great water quality. By the way, we've won awards. We continue to win awards. For the last 15 years, we've been on the state's list of top water quality, and we win national awards for water quality through AWWA's Safe Water Partnership Program. So I put our water quality up against anybody in the state. So since the system was bought in 2006, I can guarantee you this, the water that's being fed to Irwin is the best it's ever been. There's no doubt about that. So let me get started. In December 2021, the US EPA established a rule where all water systems must develop an inventory of all service line connections. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what a service line connection is in a minute, including both system-owned and customer-owned connections. The inventory must identify the potential presence of lead within each service line connection. This inventory has to be completed and submitted to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality by October of next year. This is currently underway, and HRW has contracted with McKim & Creed engineers out of Raleigh to assist with the inventory. It will be posted online and readily available to the public. Now, let's talk about service lines. This is at the cost of about $120,000, I think, to help with this inventory and identify all these service lines. A service line is defined as the line from the main to the meter. That's one part of it. The other part is from the meter to the residence or business, okay? HRW owns the line from the water main out in the street to the meter, and the customer owns from the meter to the house or business. The overwhelming majority of galvanized or lead service lines throughout the entire county system are located in Erwin. Let me explain partly what the inventory does. Okay, the plumbing code changed in 1986 and disallowed galvanized and/or lead service lines for water. PVC, plastic, became the new standard material used for connections to water lines. Everybody knows that lead is bad for you to ingest in water. Studies have shown that lead causes issue with children's development and other things, lead-based paints. Lead in the bloodstream can lead to all kinds of health issues. Because HRW did not start running the majority of our water mains to various parts of the county until later than 1986, all the service line connections to our water mains were made with PVC. This automatically eliminates approximately 90% or more of our customers from the inventory. For example, we've got about 45,000 customers. We estimate, this is pre-inventory, but we estimate about 3,000 residences will be affected from galvanized or lead service lines. We also estimate that approximately 2,000 of these, or around that number, will be in Erwin, simply because of the age of the houses and the plumbing that was used years ago before the change in 1986. Erwin's water infrastructure and most of the residences near the former mill and downtown are much older than 1986. We purchased the system in 2006. Once the inventory is completed online, HRW will replace any identified service lines that we own at that time. Now, that's an important distinction. We will not replace the customer-owned identified lead service lines because we can't assume that liability. We can't go in somebody's yard and replumb from the meter to their house. There's all sorts of issues with that. If something happens in the future, we'd be liable, etc. But we will, any lead service lines from the main in the street, in Erwin or anywhere, we will replace those to the meter. I actually don't think there's a lot of those for us, and I gave the reasons why. There still may be some in Erwin. Even if it's got a pigtail, if you know what that is, that's where you use lead solder to make a connection to a main. If that happens, if there's any lead there, we're going to replace that. But we will notify these customers annually about the presence of lead in their service line. So this inventory will be online that anybody can look at. You can just look up your residence, see if you've got a lead service line, whether you're a renter, owner, etc. And we will notify those people annually that, hey, you may want to think about replacing your lead service line just for your own health and safety. HRW sampling schedule and protocol at these identified locations will change as well but I'm not going to elaborate on those specifics today in this discussion. This law actually changes a lot of things. It changes the way we sample at schools. It changes the way we sample at daycares. So there's a lot of things built into the requirements now that deal with old service lines. And it'll be our responsibility to do that. The second phase of this project is just specific to Erwin. And that is a detailed water and sewer subsurface mapping project also to be conducted by McKim and Creed. This project is estimated to cost approximately $350,000. When HRW purchased the Erwin water and sewer system in 2006 for approximately $6.5 million, 10 million in today's dollars, we were given virtually no detailed maps of the water and sewer infrastructure, and this has hindered our complete assessment of this system. The completion of this phase will help identify existing mains that need replacement. We know about the main that most of the people have talked about here today. It's a 2-inch cast iron main that runs behind the buildings that the Jacksons own, and it's in front of or adjacent to Mr. Morris's office. And like they alluded to, it's cast iron. It needs to be replaced. So this will help us identify those areas that still are dependent upon cast iron lines and to remove those some way. Probably the best way to deal with that, and maybe Glenn can elaborate a little more later, would be just to cut off that line and then make connections at surrounding lines adjacent to those businesses where it's not cast iron and it can be fed from that direction. That's an example of how to deal with that issue. And some of the businesses along there, like others alluded to, or the speakers alluded to, if they use water, they don't have an issue as much, like the Pizza House, for example. I'm sure it uses more water than anybody on that whole block. They don't have those water quality issues. I had a staff member in there Friday. He went to the bathroom, filled up a large jar of water. It was perfectly clear because they're turning the water over. I looked up Mr. Morris's average use for the last year. It's about 400 gallons of water a month. That's not a lot of water. So, that perpetuates the issue somewhat. And but still, the cast iron line, like we've talked about, it needs to be removed. It's a little difficult. It's paved over in a lot. I think that Mr. Morris used to own that lot and was sold to the town. And so at one time, that was back in 2013, probably a different approach should have been taken, and maybe at that time it should have been offered to remove it. But the town was ready to pave that lot at that point, and so it got paved over again. In hindsight, that probably should have been dealt with a little differently. But we've replaced cast iron lines in Erwin. We already have. Lines on East Street and other streets in Erwin have been replaced. That didn't entirely eliminate the problem of dirty water. You can still have dead-end lines that need flushing, and we do some flushing in Erwin. We have to because of those situations and the age of the system, but we do that throughout the whole county, not just in Erwin. Erwin, we do a lot more flushing in the northwest part of the county than we do in Erwin because we've got a lot more subdivisions there now that have not had houses built on them. So water's not being turned over, and we have to flush that water. In 2013, and I've talked about this a little bit, we already replaced several lines in Erwin, and also we put a $1.7 million water tank at the intersection of 421 and 13th Street up near to help with water pressure. That's right behind the old Erwin Public Works building there. And I don't know what happened here, but anyway.
Hit the power switch. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I only got one more point. HRW expects this mapping project to help greatly with needed identification and subsequent replacement of cast iron lines. And that's really what needs to happen in Erwin. Those are the things that are left in the town of Erwin that need to be replaced. And it'll commence immediately once we find out exactly where everything is. I talked about the mapping and how crucial that was. In the last couple of months, there's been a lot of fiber and internet line put down in Irwin. And McKim Creed was also involved in doing a lot of the locating out there. And we discovered that there's all kinds of stuff in Irwin we don't even know existed. They hit lines that the mill had probably ran somewhere and had been disconnected and was no longer used. It was incredible, and we've been there a while now, over 15, 18 years. We've been in Irwin working every single day, fixing leaks, all that sort of stuff. And it's been challenging, to say the least. We've got a lot of the valves don't work in Irwin. I can remember when we first started in 2006, if somebody had a leak on West J Street, we had to turn water off to the entire town. So somebody on Old Post would be out of water on the other side of town next to Denham Drive, simply because none of the valves worked. You couldn't stop water from point A to point B. You couldn't isolate those leaks. So over the years, we've inserted valves at strategic points to try to isolate leaks and that sort of stuff. We've had to, because none of those valves were exercised. And you alluded, Commissioner Morris, to the condition of the system at that time. And it has gotten better. I know it needs to continue to get better. And so that's our plans moving forward. But there are specific areas where we can take pretty immediate action to try to remedy some of the situations.
One of the things that may shine a light on it for you a little bit is it seems like the vast majority of the complaints are coming out of the downtown region.
Right.
However, you see Mr. Gherkin back there on the back road. He lives over in South Irwin, Bootlegger Row over in that area, and they've had problems with it. Mayor Baker's had some in Wonder Town, so you want to add those to the list.
Sure.
What kind of time frame are we looking at to start making repairs of it?
Well, the lines we know about, we can get started on right away, like the one that runs behind the Jackson's property, the Pizza House. Everybody on that road is served from that 2-inch cast line that's in that paved over in that parking lot behind the main businesses right there. We can work on that one right away. It's not going to make a lot of people happy, though, in the sense of, it's going to be disruptive.
Sure.
That's going to be a disruptive project for us to go out and put taps out in the street in front of the Indigo Room, for example, in the Pizza House. We're going to have to put taps out there, and then that stuff's going to have to be plumbed back. Instead of the plumbing coming out of the back, it's going to have to be plumbed to the front. And it's going to be disruptive and time consuming to do that. But we can certainly get started on that right away. The mapping part of it will help to identify the other areas that need remediation and replacement.
And I appreciate all the effort y'all put in. The big thing is that I get a lot of complaints about it, and having worked over there for many years, I've seen a lot of it.
Sure.
The fact is that we're on it, start moving forward is a big thing. Sounds like you've already got a plan in place, and their line over there will be a good place to start. The red-headed fellow there behind you is the city manager. If you need anything out of town or Earl, I'm sure they'll do that.
Okay.
But anyhow, that's all I have at this point.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
I know there was some funds coming down from Washington to the federal, from the feds, infrastructure and water infrastructure. Did Hunter County get any of those funds?
Well, as part of this inventory, we applied for money. We have not heard the results of that back, but I think it is from that infrastructure money. So we may receive some funds back to help us do the inventory. It won't help with the mapping project. That's a whole different thing, but it may help with the inventory project.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question actually real quick. Are there any other areas in the county that we can expect this to be an issue in also, that maybe we should be taking a look at and addressing now? And
I would say, Commissioner Nickel, we also bought a system from Wellens down in Anderson Creek area that we bought in the late 90s. And there, we expect the inventory to show some galvanized service lines down in that area. So we'll be taking action there too, in those situations when we need to.
I want to add to that. We had the same problem here in Littleton. And it came from those old pipes that was put down years and years ago.
Sure.
But I think the town, the mayor and the staff, commissioners and all, took the time with funds that did come from Washington. I'm not sure where the funds came from. I'm not quite sure of that, but they did start working on, they start working on the pipes, removing those pipes, and some of those pipes have been down for like 100 years or more. But I understand their concern, because we had the same issue here in Littleton. It's been going on for many, many, many years, but by some means and some funds that was used. I don't know, Glenn, you might want to elaborate on that more.
I'd love to address that. First of all, in Lillington, we have the same issues in Irwin,
Right.
same issues in Spring Lake, same issues in Fuquay.
Mhm.
Everybody. There's two different issues going on in Irwin. One is the galvanized pipe and cast iron stuff that's behind this. Others are areas where water slows down. If you have PVC pipe, it doesn't do any good to replace PVC pipe with new PVC pipe. I have never found any terracotta pipe in Irwin. Terracotta is generally used for sewer. I'm not sure why that keeps coming up, but that's not an issue. As far as Irwin or Lillington goes, we haven't replaced we've replaced a few lines, actually less than what we've done in Irwin. The issue in Lillington, as it is, in fact, I've got my own personal house. This morning I was in my basement. I've got new plumbing in my house. I've got a new water line down the road, and it had odor issues. It's because we don't use that very often. What's happened in Irwin, when the mill shut down, then you had the hospital shut down, then we took the school down, it was sort of water stopped moving like it normally did. When water stops moving like it does, it creates odor issues in there. So you have to figure out what's going on. So one of the issues with Irwin has been sort of twofold. I communicate very regularly with Mr. Bowden, and we talk about things. Our number one area that we flush over there is actually in the professional part, they call it, I believe, where it's a medical thing. That's our number one flushing area. We flush, and again, I took a little bit of offense to the fact that this appears to be in low income or low socioeconomic areas. That's just simply not the case. We flush the vast majority of our water in our Northwest District, and that's because of the new subdivisions, because the water's not moving. And so it's a complicated issue, and water's very, very complicated. That is unpleasant to look at. Nobody's going to drink that. It's the water that people drink because they can't see in these new subdivisions that's going to get you sick. And so we try to work on that. So we flush all over the county. We flush in every town. Irwin's no different than any other community with old pipe. So that's really what I would have to say.
Well, I just want to add one more thing to what you just said. Irwin would be a little different because that plant, that Irwin mill plant, there was about 2,400 workers in that plant. And they use the water constantly. Constantly. And since that plant has been closed, I would think that not that much water has been used. A lot of people don't know the history of that mill and what that mill, what happened there, and even the chemicals that they use there at that mill. So I appreciate you bringing that out.
Yeah, and again, in 2013, there were several things going on. We were working with Irwin, and one of which was we don't want to replace that cast iron line back there. Actually, there's lines all around the perimeter of those, and it just needs to be new services brought in off of that. In 2013, there was some discussion, and Mr. Bowden can talk about it more, but we elected at that time, the conversation changed, and I guess the town had done some annexation, and we decided to run some things in the Chicora subdivision. There were some things that we did, and we worked out that, did amendment to the contract, and that sort of went away. And that's why we allowed them to pave over that when they did that, is because that line doesn't need to be replaced. It needs to be relocated because there's still, I think there's meters in some of the basements in one of the buildings or something, what we understand. And so it just needs to be redone. It needs to be updated. The lines are in place. It's something that we can do very quickly, but it is going to take some coordination with some of the business owners and some of that plumbing. But I think it is something that can be done relatively quickly.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Ward.
Yes, sir.
Now, and I think you cleared that up with the question about any other pipes anywhere else in the county. So this study that is ongoing
Yes.
will identify any problems we have anywhere in the county.
It will. It absolutely will. And like I said, we don't expect a lot of issues with any of our lines. There may be, or water mains, I should say, there may be service lines in areas, for example, we ran water lines in Bowie's Creek before 1986. So maybe we may find a few in Bowie's Creek. The lines we ran were PVC. But so more than likely, it was cheaper even then to do PVC to connect the house. So more than likely, PVC was used for the service lines in Bowie's Creek. But there's certain areas that are just older parts of our system that we're going to have to check and see, but it will be countywide.
Okay, very good. And the second question, this 2-inch cast iron line or galvanized that is in question that we're hearing so much about today, that we know where it is and
Yes.
what's happening.
We do.
Do we know without the survey where we could make that connection?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's something we could go ahead and start moving on.
Correct.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, I would like to see us do that since we feel comfortable with the information we have, so we could go ahead and get that part of the problem coordinated, a plan developed, and get it corrected.
I understand, and when that's our plan to do that. We'll have to get a permit to start that, to relocate those services, but we'll get on that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, is there anything further under new business?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board go into closed session for the following purposes: to consult with the county's legal counsel in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege concerning the handling of certain litigation, including the following case. In the matter of the appeal of Jackson Family Enterprises LLC appellant before the Property Tax Commission, sitting as the State Board of Equalization and Review, file number 22 PTC 0259, 2 parcels. This motion is made pursuant to NC General Statute Section 143-318.11A3.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second for closed session. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're in closed session. I'll consider us open and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. We are adjourned.